Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Megillah. We are up to Perek Daled Mishnah Vav. Today's Mishnayot should be Le'ilun Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Aranbayev and Eliyahu ben Burchai Israelov Menuchatam Began Eden Amen and Le'avdi ben Chaim L'Chaim v'Refuah Shenemav Daniel Shalom ben Rosa B'toch Shah Chorei Israel. Having stated that a minor may not lead the prayers, the Mishnah teaches some related laws. Katan koreh b'Torah u'mtargem. A minor may read the Torah for the congregation and translate it, because people do not need to discharge any obligation by listening to him. Aval eno pores al Shema ve'eno over lefnei hateva. But he may not divide the Shema and he may not go before the ark to repeat the Shmona Esrei, because people do need to discharge the obligation by listening to him, and a minor is not capable of fulfilling an obligation on behalf of someone else. A minor is not obligated to perform the mitzvot, and anyone who is not obligated to do a mitzvah cannot discharge others from their obligation. Nevertheless, a minor may read the Torah for the congregation, and this is because the obligation of each person is not to read the Torah, but to hear it being read in public. Therefore, the reader is not fulfilling anyone's obligation. He's just reading it aloud so that others can listen. So for this reason, even a minor may read the Torah despite the fact that he himself has no obligation. And since he may read the Torah, he may certainly serve as the translator. Some authorities, however, permit a minor to read the Torah only after the first three sections have been read. This is discussed in Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, chapter 282, Halakha 3. Veno noset kapav, and if he is a Kohen, he may not lift his hands to recite the priestly blessing on his own, because it is demeaning for the congregation to depend on a minor for its blessings. Now, this is true only when the minor is the only Kohen present. However, the Tosfot on page 24 in Masechet Megillah explain he may recite the priestly blessing together with adult Kohanim. Now, the Mishnah presents laws of others who are unfit to lead certain prayers. Pocheach pores et Shema u'mtargem. One whose clothes are torn, exposing his arms, may divide the Shema and translate the Torah reading despite his improper appearance. He may divide the Shema because the one who does this task does not stand before the ark, and his torn clothes are therefore not as visible to the congregation. And he may translate the Torah because it is a less important role, as is evident from the law that even a minor may be a translator. Aval eno koreh b'Torah, but he may not read the Torah for the congregation, because that shows a lack of respect for the Torah. Ve'eno over lefnei hateva ve'eno noset kapav, and he may not go before the ark to repeat the Shmona Esrei, or if he is a Kohen, lift his hands to recite the priestly blessing, because it is demeaning to the congregation to have him fill these important roles for them. And the Mishnah discusses the law of a blind man. Suma pores et Shema u'mtargem. A blind man may divide the Shema and translate the Torah reading. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, but Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol shelo ra'a meorot miyamav, eno pores al Shema. Anyone who is blind from birth and has never seen the luminaries, the sun, the moon, and stars, may not divide the Shema. Since dividing the Shema includes the blessing of Yotzer Or, he who formed light, which thanks God for the luminaries, it may not be said by a person who has never benefited from them. Rabbi Yehuda holds that such a person may not even recite this blessing privately, because someone who has never benefited from the luminaries cannot thank God for them. And since he himself is not obligated to say this blessing, he cannot discharge others from their obligation. The sages, however, disagree, because when there is light outside, people who have sight can guide the blind person and keep him away from harm. In this way, a blind person does indeed benefit from the luminaries and must recite the blessing for them. And the Rav does say, Ven halacha Rabbi Yehuda, the halacha does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And that is in of Mishnah Vav. Mishnah Zayin continues with another law about the priestly blessing. Kohen sheyesh biadav mumin lo yisad kapav. A Kohen whose hands are blemished, for example, they are bent in a strange way, may not lift his hands to recite the priestly blessing. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Af mi sheyu yadav tzvuot isatis ufua lo yisad kapav. Even one whose hands are stained with a blue dye or a red dye may not lift his hands to recite the priestly blessing. Now, the reason for the prohibition according to both Tanaim is as follows. It is because the people will stare at him, and if the Kohen's hands look strange, people will look at them. Staring at a Kohen's hands when he blesses the congregation is forbidden. because the Shekhinah rests on his hands at that time, and gazing at the Shekhinah can make one's eyesight grow dim. However, if the Kohen has lived in the same place for some time and people are used to seeing his blemished hands, or if his hands are stained with dye, but he is in a place where most people work with dye, the Rav says he may recite the blessing. In these cases, people will not find his hands unusual and will not stare. Now, a Kohen may not say the priestly blessing even if his face or feet are blemished, because the people will look at the blemish and their sight might then stray to his hands. A blemish on a Kohen's foot is visible because the Kohanim do not wear shoes when they recite the blessing. Today, when it is customary for the Kohanim to cover their hands with the talit while they recite the blessing, the Mishnah's prohibitions do not apply, as Shulchan Aruch discusses in Orach Chaim, chapter 128, Halacha 31. And that is an Abotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.